I think I knew what most people think they know, which is that Vesuvius erupted sometime around the Roman times, buried a city, it got uncovered. It's now an archaeological treasure, and we know a lot about the Romans because of it. That's kind of as much as I knew. In doing this movie, I found out a lot about how the day's events unfolded. I found out a lot about gladiators, about Pompeii itself, how it was the sort of Las Vegas of the Roman Empire. And I think what really captures people's imagination about Pompeii has to be the plaster cast humans, people trapped in one moment in time at the moment of their death. And it's very, very moving, actually, and it makes it not just a historical event, but a very human tragedy. I went to Pompeii and I saw it. I saw the ruins, and
I saw a photo of you online of you visiting Pompeii.
Yeah, probably a terrible one like that.
No, was that before the movie or afterwards?
That was after the movie. I didn't have time to go before, but I jumped at the chance of going afterwards because I felt, having tried to imagine this place for 4 months or whatever, I felt I had to do myself justice by going to see it.
I think I'd learnt a little bit about it in high school, but I didn't know.
Most people.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of the details of it, and I mean Paul was so well researched. You know, he kind of taught me quite a bit about it. You know, I never knew about the mummified bodies that are still there. These kind of, you know, people that died and were sort of cowering, and there are now these statues that you can actually go and see. That was pretty fascinating for me to find out.
I knew what I knew in history lessons at school, that there was a big eruption and it destroyed the city of Pompeii. That was it. But obviously I did some extensive research coming into the movie, not only about the extent of the destruction of Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius' impact, but also the character that I played, Atticus, who was an enslaved African who rose to become the champion gladiator of Pompeii, you know, which is interesting because, you know, I had to look and find out, well, how would an African end up in an Italian arena? And that was fascinating to me, where he would have come from, Mauritania, Liberia, and Italy and Africa, the southern tip of Italy and the northern tip of Africa were all one in 79 AD. There wasn't the split between Europe and Africa, so it was common for the Romans to conquer African kingdoms.
Thrones is a very physically demanding piece, but you're only working for maybe a week, and then a week off, and then 2 weeks on, and then 3 weeks off. It's very sporadic. So it's that ebb and flow of work pressure that you have to deal with. It's very location-based, so sometimes you'll be in snow and you'll be freezing. And it's that kind of a demanding. This was a very different thing. This was physical training for weeks on end, eating absolutely nothing, fighting constantly.
What did you miss the most about what you couldn't have in your diet?
It was simple things. It was a latte.
A lot.
With sugar. You know, I couldn't have any dairy, so I had to have black coffee each day. And it was just cooking a chicken breast in oil rather than dry. You know, it was...
Did it get bland after a while? Like, you felt like you were eating the same thing over and over?
Rabbit food. It really is taking away one of the greatest pleasures in life, not being able to eat what you want to eat.
Right.
But at the same time, I was obsessional about the whole body thing, and then it was a really satisfying outcome at the end anyway.
I don't know what the smoke was. I mean, I know it wasn't real smoke. It was just like a smoke machine, like kind of like what you have at like those kind of underage discos when you're like 12 years old. You know, they blow the smoke machines. It was kind of like that. But the ash was actually dyed potato starch. So, yeah.
Now, how long could you actually shoot a scene and breathe that in before they actually have to cut?
I mean, I think you can go for a couple of minutes and it's fine. You could stay in there for sort of like half an hour if you needed to. But we would usually once we'd got the shot, we would go outside and kind of like get some fresh air, and they would open up all of the big doors so that we had fresh air coming in.
The fact that whenever because there's two things that are certain in life: you're going to be born and you're going to die. We're all going to have to face it at some point, and it's a matter of, well, how would you face it when the end of the world is nigh, is always the dark shadow that threatens to engulf us in our lives, and here we have it in Pompeii. It actually happened.